Have you ever blamed yourself for something that happened to you when you were a child? Something you couldn't control? Will Smith did, Kendrick Lamar did, even fictional character Steve Urkel did. And it's time to talk about why so many of us carry guilt for things that were never our fault. Let's start with Will Smith. In his memoir, Will, he tells a story about being a 9-year-old where he watched his father abuse his mother and did nothing. He froze, and that single moment branded him. Even today, he says everything that he's achieved, every movie, every laugh, every show, was a subtle apology to his mom for not saving her that night, or many nights. In his mind, he had failed her at 9 years old. Now, Kendrick Lamar, on a track titled Mother I Sober, he travels back to when he was just 5 years old. Mother cried, put their hands on her. I heard it all. I should have grabbed a gun, but I was only 5. He still blames himself. To this day, can't look her in her eyes. I blame myself. And you never felt guilt until you felt it sober. The pain wasn't just from the abuse. It was the burden of believing that he should have stopped it as a 5-year-old. Season 2, Episode 7 of Family Matters. Dog Day Halloween is the title. And Steve is dressed as Superman in a bank with Laura, who's dressed as Tina Turner. A robbery goes down. It turns into a hostage situation. And they both survive. Everyone's celebrating. But when the crowd clears and they get back to the house, Steve pulls Carl to the side and says, I'm a coward. I pictured myself saving the day, but I ultimately just did what I was told. And Carl gently affirms him. Steve, you did exactly what you should have done. You kept Laura safe. You were brave. You didn't abandon her. But even in a Superman costume, at probably 12 or 13 years old, Steve felt like a failure. Now let's go a little deeper. Steve walks into the bank wearing a Superman costume, right? But that costume isn't just a Halloween outfit. It's a symbol of longing, a mask of aspiration. It represents the kind of man Steve wishes he could be when danger shows up. Superman is strong, fearless, respected. And Steve, well, he's clumsy, nerdy, soft-spoken, and timid. He wears glasses not to hide his identity. He actually needs them. He got a string on the back, too. So when he puts that cape on, it's not cosplay. It's hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, he can be powerful, be worthy, be the one that Laura admires. So inside the bank, Steve imagines this whole fantasy scenario where he stops the robber, saves Laura and the others, and becomes the hero of the story. And for a brief moment in his mind, he is Superman. But reality doesn't match the dream. When he snaps back into real time, he's still scared, still unsure, and he's still himself. And this is where the guilt sets in, y'all. He wasn't asking for super strength. He was asking for courage. And when he couldn't find it, he simply turned on himself. I'm a coward, he says. And not because he did anything wrong, but because he didn't match the fantasy of who he thought he should be as a 12 or 13-year-old. And children, especially boys, black boys in particular, often internalize this idea that love equals protection. If someone they care about get hurt, they believe they failed. And when they can't save the day, they don't just feel powerless, they feel hopeless and worthless. And it doesn't matter that they're kids. Guilt doesn't care about your age. And the shame that you feel, it doesn't ask for context. It just whispers, you should have done more. And that Superman costume, it becomes a quiet reminder of who they couldn't be. The storytelling in this is awesome. That costume is pure duality. It's not who Steve is, it's who he thinks he needs to become to be loved, respected, and safe. He's Clark Kent on the outside, and on the inside, he wants to be Superman for Laura, for Carl, and for himself. And when he doesn't live up to that image, he doesn't just lose confidence. He blames himself for not being someone he thought he should be. And that's the tragic irony right there. He was already enough. And like Carl told Steve, you stuck by my daughter, and that makes you a hero. Because real strength isn't always in fighting. Sometimes it's staying, it's in caring, it's in not running away when you can easily abandon the situation or the person. Steve Urkel didn't have superpowers, but he had presence. And presence in moments of chaos, that's a kind of power. Will Smith didn't fight his father. Kendrick Lamar didn't grab the gun. Steve didn't stop the robbery. But all of them felt responsible. All of them felt like cowards and failures. Not because they were weak, but because in this world, we're often made to believe that strength means action instead of compassion or survival or presence. So look, was there ever a time in your childhood where you felt like you could do more? Have you blamed your younger self for not being strong enough, brave enough, or even fast enough? Is there a child version in you right now still carrying the shame of something that you couldn't stop? Share your story, leave a comment, or if not, you could write it down for yourself. And maybe, just maybe, tell that younger version of you, you weren't a coward, you were a child. And I'm simply proud of you for surviving.